Hey there, and welcome back to Do Epic Shit. Sean here again, finishing up some edits on Utama, which is Alejandro Loayza Grisi's debut film that premiered in Amsterdam about 3 weeks ago. The name of the film is called Utama, which means our home. I am proud to present the Q&A that happened after that amazing filming on August 25th, 2022 in Amsterdam. I hope you enjoy the questions that go with the film. There are no spoiler alerts in this one. It's a beautifully shot film. It is my favorite of all the 4 feature films I saw and the 1 short. Once again, this is Alejandro Loayza Grisi, the Bolivian director and writer of Utama.
This experience with me, and I'm very happy to introduce the film here in Amsterdam. And the film is called Utama. It means our home, and it was shot in the south of Bolivia, in Potosí, at around 4,000 meters above sea level. I'm very happy to introduce this little window to my country to you. So I hope you enjoy the film and see you after the screening.
Thank you very much for this beautiful film. The word climate change is never mentioned, but it's very clear to everyone, including the couple, that this drought, this extensive drought, is not your average stroke of bad luck, and that something fundamentally has changed. Can you tell a little bit about how the climate crisis affects this region specifically, and how it affects the communities that live there?
Yes. Well, sadly, the situation is very similar to the film. It's like in the film. This region depends on glaciers. The water supply comes out of glaciers, and glaciers are disappearing. And every year it's raining less and less. So a lot of these communities have started to migrate already, but they still have, for now, underneath water.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a matter of time until this place is a big desert.
Yeah. What made you want to make a film about this issue?
At first I wanted to tell a love story between 2 people that only needed each other and whose biggest richness was to have each other. And then I was lucky enough to travel all around Bolivia. It's a very big country, and I was traveling doing a documentary series about environmental issues. So I got to see a lot of different realities, and I got to see problems that sometimes in the city we are just not aware of, and yes, different types of life that very close to us are changing because of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think we have a bit of reverberation from the screen. There's also mention about you're talking about the groundwater that is still unused. There's also kind of little mention how much help do these communities get from the government to maintain their way of life?
Well, Bolivia is, as I said, a very big country in territory, but it's a very small state, a very poor state. So it's very difficult to reach all the regions in Bolivia. And sadly, I think our government is not prepared to these climate emergencies. I think there is no government that is prepared, that is mentioning the problem in the real dimension of the problem.
Yeah, that's global.
Yeah.
But about the film, you choose to portraying the lives of the people and the environment in which it takes place. And you already said you were making documentary films as a director of photography, I believe. Yes. And you also have a background in photography, which I think is very clear from the beautiful way you frame the images, etc. Can you explain a little bit how you envisage this aesthetic together with your director of photography for this film?
Yes. So, as you said, I began my artistic career as a photographer, still photographer, and I went to many shootings, and I learned a lot in these shootings. And then I started to do direction of photography, to be a cinematographer. So by the time my first feature arrived, I already knew very clearly how I wanted it to be image-wise. And I know the highlands of Bolivia very well. I know the behavior of the light very well. So I really knew how I wanted the film to look like. And then when Barbara Alvarez joined, she's one of the most important cinematographers in Latin America. She has worked with Lucrece Martel, for instance. And she came and when she wrote the script, she said to me, I'm imagining the film this way, and it was exactly the same way. So we got along very well, very good, and she also gave me a little bit, she controlled my anxiety, because when you're making your first feature film, you're very anxious to show how capable you are and to do a very aesthetic film. But she controlled me, my anxiety, so I think we made a very good team.
Very good. I have more questions, but maybe there is somebody in the audience who wants to ask.
Approach to time passing and to the change that maybe some characters are resisting, like Virginia, and some others, like Clever, adjust to accept, acknowledge that we need to move with the times. I was wondering, what's the perception of time in Bolivian culture? How is it seen by the older generation, maybe in contrast to the younger one? Thank you.
Thank you for your words. It's a very difficult question, because I think it really depends on each culture. But I think the time in the countryside is very different, and I think time for older generations is also very different. I think we now live in a time when everything has to happen right away, and when there's a lot of things happening at the same time, and you're not comfortable being here or there, and you're actually not here or there. So I think I wanted to show that, the difference between how we feel time and how we live in the cities, and how people still live in the countryside in Bolivia. And the phrase you mentioned was a phrase the director of art heard, and she told me this phrase, and I said, this is so poetic, because I think you can resume the film with that sentence, like time has gotten tired. It's metaphorical, and I found it very poetic.
I also found it in Quechua how poetic the language and the storytelling is. So we're just finishing.
Yes, it's a very sweet language.
Bueno, Ale, antes que nada, felicidades, viejo. Congratulations, the movie was super nice. A lot of layers, climate change. But something that struck me the most was, I've tried to explain a lot of times how the highlands in Bolivia are. You have nostalgia, you have a bit of mysticism and solitude. And I think you managed to encapsulate all that really well in framing, aesthetically. So I was wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more of this, like the mysticism of Andean highlands.
Well, thank you very much. You really described it very well, the solitude, the mysticism, and
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia, yes. And I think it's when you're there, it's very difficult to explain how it feels to be there. And we wanted the film to show that, to approach as much as we could to that feeling. And we worked, of course, with the image, but also with the sound, and with this silence that you perceive in this place, and this particular sound. And I think also the music that we chose helped us to transmit this feeling, because it's strange, it's also very familiar, and we wanted this. It's very difficult to frame this big landscape. To frame it, it's very difficult. It's unfair to the landscape.
Yeah, yes.
But
When you're there, it's you feel it, and I felt it also in the movie. I was like, okay, well, you made it. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Can I elaborate, or can you elaborate on the music that you talked about? Because I saw that there is, you use the orquestas experimental de instrumentos nativos. Is that the few tunes that we hear in the beginning with the flutes? And
Yes.
it sounds very experimental, and it also sounds very native.
Yeah.
What is the...
It's a great orchestra. The composer began around 40 years ago, and it's called Experimental Orchestra of Native Instruments.
Yeah.
And he tried to understand music in a different way, to write music in a different way, using native instruments. It's an encounter between Western music and Indian music. And when we were editing, I had all these references for the film, and we used the references. And then I showed the film to the composer, and he was very happy that his music was there, and he allowed us to use them. And he edited many of the tunes, so they would adjust precisely to the moment. And he also composed the first song. The first song is originally composed for the film, and also the last song. And I like to think that the first song speaks about Virginio, about him. I relate the first song with him, very tough, very mysterious, and I relate the last song with her. I wanted the ending to be about her and her decision, and that's why we decided to use a female voice, because I think she's very sweet, the character, and I love that those songs are originally made for the film.
Yeah.
About this, I'm very grateful you made this film, and it really touched me. The question I had was, one, midway there's a song in Quechua, I think it's Luz Mila, and I was wondering, my Quechua is not that good, also about the words. Her voice alone touches the soul, but I was wondering about the lyrics. And then this other question was about getting this movie seen in the countryside. Do you have any idea for distribution, getting it to the people?
So first, the second question, we are going to have our Bolivian premiere in the community, and we're of course very excited about that. It's going to be a very different screening, and we still have nothing else planned for the countryside. We would love to have it distributed all around the countryside, but we have to do some partnership with the Ministry of Education or something, I don't know what, but we would love to do that, of course. And the song is by Luzmila Carpio, and she's a wonderful Quechua singer, and the lyrics are very beautiful as well. She's singing to the condor, to the father condor, and she's asking for protection from the father condor, and that's all I remember. But also we use that in the editing as a reference, and then we showed the film to her, and she agreed to give her song.
I guess the Condor has a specific significance in Aymara culture.
Yeah, in all the cultures in the Andes, it has a very special meaning. One that I really like is that the condor is the protector of the mountains, the guardian of the mountains, and because he's the only one that with his flight can check the real health of mountains, and therefore the health of water and life. And the condor is in danger of extinction, the royal condor, so it's coming paradoxically at the same time as the mountains and the glaciers are in a very bad health. And I also like the meaning he tells to his grandson, that when a condor dies, a new cycle of life begins.
Yes, yeah. It's a lot about dying and birth. More dying than birth, I think. Anybody else?
Yes.
Please wait for the microphone.
Yes, thank you. As a Bolivian, I can see the reflection. I see myself of my roots as well in the film with the this couple, this old, and we see many things as a Bolivian that it happens, and we want to portray this. But my question is, what makes you inspire this story to tell us, and what situation you had to see to create this? And maybe it was one of your trips, like you said before, because when we go to the city, we know that in the village, this, not only this, but other things is also happening from a couple, from your travelings, and to tell us this story.
Thank you. I really, I think the main inspiration was to tell a love story, and I really love my country, and I really love to be able to tell stories about the country. And it's a very big country with many different cultures, and that's one of the richness we have. And I think I think cinema is a great way of portraying a reality and portraying a society. I think you can learn more about a society when you watch a film than when you read books or whatever, but because cinema can speak from a character. So you're putting yourself in the shoes of the character, and it's a direct way, heart to heart, to tell you about a reality. So I would really like to have in my career many films about Bolivia and different parts of Bolivia. And during my travels, there are scenes that were inspired. And the particular scene when she goes to the village and tries to get water, I saw that in real life, and it's on the documentary. So there are a lot of scenes that were inspired by all these travels.
We have one.
First of all, this movie was spectacularly filmed. I love from the very opening scene of the sunset or sunrise, that opening scene and the way it was framed. And every scene after that, to me, was just spectacular. But I wanted to piggyback on what you first said and what you just said now about it being a love story. I see it, I don't know if this is how you meant it, but I see it not only as a love story between the two main characters, but between him and nature and the earth, his world. He's so reluctant to divorce that and go to the city. He's so reluctant to move away from that, and he thinks he has to take his wife with him when he goes as well, because they're connected to the earth and to each other the same way. I just wanted to get your explanation on that, or what you were. Is that what you were also meaning by the love story, or is it?
Yes, that was also. I wanted to. I think the character has a profound love to his culture and to his place on Earth, to Earth, and I think he's showing a resisting behavior because he's resisting, because I think that when they are gone, maybe this entire way of seeing life is also gone, and that was something I wanted to talk about, because I think with cities getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and with globalization, we are forgetting about all these other cultures and all these other ways of seeing the world. And I wanted to show that in the film. I wanted to talk about that. And in Bolivia, that this is happening a lot. I think in all countries it's happening similar, something similar. But yes, I think the starting point was a love story, but then I started to think more and more about the story, the characters, and at one point the characters drive the story themselves. And I think that was what happened during screenwriting, and that was fabulous for me because I could remain faithful to the characters. And I think he's faithful of the way he thinks, and that's why he defends the lives.
Right. Thank you.
The very last question, I think,
It's very difficult because Bolivia still has a lot of water, actually. Like a lot, we provide water for the entire Amazon, because the Amazon River comes from the Andes, mainly, also rains, of course, but we still have water, and in many regions we have a lot of water. We're not managing it well, and there are other regions, like this one, that they don't have water because of the way the river goes to the Amazon, or to the Rio de la Plata, to both. And it's very difficult because these are very small communities, very small villages, and I don't know of any kind of organization they have. Sometimes it's just easier to migrate, and I wouldn't be able to answer your question correctly, sorry.
okay, that should be the last one.
I would be glad to answer any other question outside. So, yeah.
Great, yeah, I think we can all see each other in the bar
Yes.
and
Thank you.
talk on. Thank you very much.
Felicitaciones.